Welcome back, students. This is your Dean CountXevious, starting out the new Silph season on top of Obstagoon. Now that that's out of the way, let's get straight into the Lunar Cup meta Simplified. What Pokemon you can use in this meta? The Pokemon that are viable to be used are going to be Pokemon with the typings of Bug, Dark, Electric, Ghost, and Grass type. I think this is a very exciting meta. Personally, for me, I took a look at it and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. What's banned is Scrafty, Pachirisu, Stunfisk, Alolan Marowak, Cottony, and Wallaby. Probably Wallaby is being banned because you don't want to see a Mandibuzz Wallaby double flyer strategy. That's going to be very detrimental for the meta. With that in mind, let's get towards building our meta Simplified. So, as usual, I'm going to show you 3 typings, and whatever's at the top beats the one that's below. For example, for the fighters, you have Heracross at the top of the fighters, followed by Escavalier, Breloom, and Obstagoon. Why? Because Heracross beats all the fighters. Similarly, for bugs, you have Fortress at the top, followed by Exelburmy, Crustle, Ariados, and Galvantula. Fortress is up there because I think it has a lot of non-bait dependent matchups. Crustle can beat the Fortress, but it needs to bait with the Exeter, which is definitely not going to be good for the Crustle if the opponent calls the Exeter. Coming down to dark types, you have Zweilous at the top because this is the meta dark type that's going to beat all the other dark types. We're now going to build, let's say, a circle of life of how the core meta is going to shape up. What is the core meta? The core meta are going to be your dark types, your bug types, and your counter users. As you can see, I've also put in extra boxes in the center because these serve very specific functions. For example, the fighters, the counter users, they beat dark types except Mandibuzz and Sableye. These 2 dark types are in turn picked up by Obstagoon. So basically, Obstagoon is the one Pokemon that can beat the entire dark type set, except if Mandibuzz has Air Slash. So why do I call this a circle of life? It's because X beats Y beats Z, and Z beats X. So we have that going on here. You have the dark types that are going to be beaten convincingly by the bug type Pokemon, and you have the counter users that beat the dark types, and also the bug types end up beating some of the dark type Pokemon. Why I think this is important is because you need to find a way to counter the meta bug type Pokemon, because they are going to be the ones that are going to dictate how the meta is going to be played. Battlers, now that you're this far into this video, please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. With that in mind, we can then look at which Pokemon have convincing matchups against the bug type Pokemon. And the things that stand out are going to be your ghost types. Number 1, because why ghost types? For example, you're going to see a lot of people use counter users to beat the bug types because a lot of the bug types share a typing that is weak to counter. So ghost types beat both the counter users and also the bug types. For example, Dusclops with Fire Punch convincingly beat most of the bug types, and Dusclops also picks up all of the fighters. Exception being again Obstagoon and Golurk can beat Obstagoon, but in a very specific scenario that it can bait with the Shadow Punch and then land the superpower. I don't think this is going to be especially hard because Obstagoons would want to shield because the superpower takes them out. So I would still put this matchup in favor of Golurk. So as you can see, ghost types can do pretty well in this meta, but it's a very niche way to play them. I think the only viable ghost type is personally for me Golurk, but Golurk has this very big problem that it gets absolutely walled by the dark type Pokemon. Yes, superpower hits them hard, but the dark types are fairly bulky and they're possibly going to really give Golurk a run for its money. So what else can you use? For example, if you want to beat the bug types but you also want to cover the dark types, if that's your weakness. For these, you have the electric and rock type Pokemon. You have Alolan Graveler, Alolan Geodude, Raichu, and Magnezone. These Pokemon do beat the dark types. They also beat the bug type Pokemon and can, let's say, decently face off against Dusclops, but absolutely get wrecked by by Golurk. For me personally, the rock types are how I am going to deal with the bugs and also against the dark types, because bugs and dark types are going to be you're going to see them everywhere, and if you have something that beats both, I think it's amazing to have. One thing I would like to point out is that once you take a step back and look at the overall meta, you see how strong Obstagoon is in this meta. Other than the counter users, it can pretty much go toe-to-toe with everything on the meta simplified chart here. And even the counter users, for example, as Cavalier, it probably is going to take quite a bit of damage from the counter, because as Cavalier is a part steel type. And so the counter is going to hit it for neutral damage. I think the only real big threat for Obstagoon and the double counter strategy is going to be your Ariadoses and Galvantulas. They have a very, very specific, let's say, play in the meta is in the way that they beat all the counter users. And I think that is a very powerful tool that you can use. All right, some of the safe swaps that I think are going to be really good in this meta. Number one is going to be Alolan Graveler. Why? Because Stone Edge from Alolan Graveler. It's pretty much everything in this meta does not want to take a Stone Edge to its face, except maybe the Golurk. You also have the next preferred safe swap, which is Galvantula. Galvantula with an energy lead is still extremely dangerous. Doesn't matter what meta it is in, it's always going to be a huge, huge problem for your opponents. Then you have the most conventional safe swap carried over from GBL, and that's Sableye. Why? Because Sableye still has access to return, and with the extra bulk coming from all the people who are now in a position to have an Excel Sableye, I think it's going to be a really, really good safe swap. Last but not the least is Alolan Golem, because it does exactly the same thing that Alolan Graveler does. Unless you give it Wild Charge, then it gets a lot more tricky to play around this Pokemon. Last but not the least, spicing it up. If you really want to spice things up, I think some of these Pokemon are extremely viable. Roserade does very well in this meta. It can, I think, beat the Bug-type Pokemon. It can also do well against the Rock Electrics, and also pretty decent against the counter types because of its part poison typing. Another Pokemon that I think is really, really interesting, and I think can be potentially one of the best safe swaps too, is Pangoro. It's basically exactly does what Shiftry does. So having access to Night Slash and close combat, it can hit pretty much everything in this meta for either neutral or super effective damage. And having Snarl and the energy generation that Snarl gives you, it's absolutely insane. Because if you swap in late into a Pangoro, you probably lose the winning matchup unless you're running a counter user. And the last one is the cutie that's all the way at the bottom. It's Alolan Grimer. I think it's a very interesting Pokemon to use as a spice pick for this meta. There you have it, battlers. Your Lunar Cup meta simplified. I hope all of you are hyped up for the next Silph season and start out with a bunch of wins. Good luck, have fun.